Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagoshnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, is it humanly possible to actually feel bad for Sean Payton this year, or would that be a cry for help?
Yeah, that would to me suggest that something is going on in your personal life that needs resolution. When you start projecting feelings of empathy onto a soulless vessel.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that if you were to feel bad at any point in time for Sean Payton, you should probably seek help.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad that we were able to come to that conclusion. I cannot stand the human being, and every time he loses, I feel like an angel gets his wings. And this year, boy, there's just so many angels getting wings. It's glorious. Welcome to this edition of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well and having as wonderful a day as Arif and I are today. We have plenty of things to talk about. We are going to preview the Bears game here in just a moment, and we have a mailbag as well. But before we start, once again, thank you for listening to Norse Code. If you enjoy the show and would like to help us financially, you can do so a couple of different ways. You can go over to patreon.com/NorseCode and head over there for some bonus material. You can head over there for the Discord, all that. There's still that excellent episode from the bonus material that we put out last week instead of the actual episode with the phone call and all of that. So check that out, and a whole lot of mailbag over at patreon.com/NorseCode. And a special thank you to someone who put their name in here as something unpronounceable for myself, but I will do my best. Ty Patak. Apologies. Ty Tak. Maybe that's it. I'm going to require...
Do you have to kick for a Texas-based football organization?
Maybe. I don't know. We got an interesting follow on Twitter today, too. So, I'm not questioning anything at this point. But thank you, Ty, so much for supporting us over on Patreon. You can also go over to paypal.me/NorseCode as well if you'd like to give a one-time donation. Or you can go over to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up a shirt, pick up a baby onesie. The baby onesies are looking cute in the Discord, by the way. Just wanted to let you guys know that. You can also pick up a, I suppose, poster, a flag, any number of things, including the wreath gear, which is going to be very useful come the holidays, including the Christmas socks. Who doesn't love the Christmas socks other than a wreath? So... check that out over at norsecode.threadless.com and have some fun over there. Well, let's get into the preview of the game. We have Lauren Cox on. He is a regular on the show, and he is with the Locked On Bears podcast. So let's go to an interview that Arif conducted earlier today.
I'm here with Cox Sports One. I've decided you don't even have a name anymore. That's it. You're Cox Sports One. You said last time that the only reason you maintained that, let's say, I'm going to keep calling it Twitter, that Twitter handle, was because I keep complimenting it every time I introduce you.
I like this dystopian future where we lose names and we're just our online handles. You know, hello.
This is like Darren Rovell's dream. You see, before Twitter was all that popular, he did the first pitch at a baseball game. I don't know if it was an MLB game or a college game or whatever. And instead of his name on the back of the jersey, it was his Twitter handle. Before Dion did that this year, it was back in 2010 when no one really cared about Twitter.
Because we all know Darren Rovell is the real trendsetter. We didn't.
Yeah, I mean that's what we know him to be. Yeah,
he's at the forefront of cool.
He still has me blocked.
Exactly. That's what I said. He's at the forefront of cool.
Yeah. Do you still have the beard?
I do. I still have an excellent beard. I'm trying to add a little length to it right now, but it's
length.
Well, you get to that awkward stage where it's you either keep it short and sexy, or you try and add some inches to it. But when you get in between, where it's you're pulling out a little bit, but it's not long yet, it just looks awkward, and that's what winter.
I don't have the courage for that phase, so I always trim it. But props to you. Lord knows you need that beard.
Just running through Arif's best Lauren jokes every year. It's oh yeah, he looks young, and I like his Twitter handle. It's all right, yep.
Yeah, time to get rid of one of those. Cool. Yeah, so officially your name is Lauren Cox. I believe that's what's on your government ID. and you do Locked On Bears. I didn't actually ask you before the show what I should introduce you as. So do you do anything besides Locked On Bears? That sounds so rude. Do you do anything besides Locked On Bears?
But isn't that the truth in this industry? Like, if you're doing one thing, you're falling behind, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Locked On Bears is the main Chicago Bears related thing. I occasionally write with Brian Perez over at the Bears Talk, but I haven't been dipping the pen as much lately. But I do some other radio related things that aren't super relevant to the podcast, but keep me employed.
Like local radio station. Like, what do you do? Like Green Bay Packers radio?
I work for public radio, actually, Wisconsin Public Radio. I'm a producer and do some high school football play by play and a couple other things here and there.
Any 3 or 4 stars I should be aware of?
Actually, one of the kids I do, he just got recognized by the NFL for the high school play of the week a couple weeks ago, where
You're kidding.
He was in the backfield like Aaron Donald. He's at the snap, just stepped around the guard, rip move, and then hit the back as he was getting the handoff and got lit up on the play. It was a great
That
play.
rules.
He's a junior who's he's 6 feet, 215 pounds playing defensive tackle. So he's not going to go be a big recruit somewhere, but he is really fast off the line of scrimmage and he's fun to watch.
You could probably coach that guy up to be an edge rusher a couple of years in college. All right, good talk. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. What is going on?
If I had the answers to that question, man, I could be team president at that point. A lot is going on, and at the same time, not enough is going on, and that's the problem, right? I mean, there has been so much of everything, of the perfect firestorm of disaster with Justin Fields struggling out of the gate, the coaching staff not necessarily calling a very cohesive offense, very predictable basic defense. Then you get defensive coordinator resigns abruptly and the team is
sure. Let's call it that. Let's call it resignation.
Yeah, well, formally, that is what happened. He did.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Norv Turner also resigned as offensive coordinator in 2016. I understand.
The weird thing, though, I mean, we don't need to get deep into that, but normally it's like a guy resigns, and in his resignation, he said, he wants to focus on his family and his health and deal with those sort of things. And normally when that happens, even if it's a quote unquote firing, which is not exactly the case, I mean, sort of here, but normally when it's like a Norv Turner situation, the coaching staff and the GM,
they'll thank him. They'll thank him for his effort. We wish him the best.
Yes. And we're praying for you. We hope everything is well in his house and family. We know he has to take care of his business, and we're just, we're glad for everything he did here, but he's got to move on, and we appreciate him for all that. For the Bears, it was comment.
Nothing
to say.
at all. Oh my God. We'll get into that when we talk about the defense a little bit, but that is nuts, right? So 3 weeks ago, the Bears looked like the most disastrous organization on the planet. And then they got to play a slightly less disastrous organization, but a worse team. And they're coming out looking like roses. They beat the brakes off the Broncos, I guess.
Well, lost, but
okay. Justin Fields beat the brakes off the Broncos, and okay, he also did not play a complete game, if I'm going to be honest. But hey, that's a direction, right?
That's picking up on what we saw moments of last year too, right? I mean, we've been down this path before where Justin Fields struggles, especially to start seasons, and it's right around, week 4, 5, 6 in that range. He really picks up and gets hot for a while. And I think we're going to see that continue here. And it's a matter of sustaining that and making it 4-quarter performances and, doing it in ways that represent progress and development, and not just taking advantage of what the defense is giving you and just sort of taking the easy stuff there, but actually, doing the difficult things at a higher level, or doing the things that he struggled with at a higher level to be evidence of more lasting, permanent growth, and not just a reflection of playing the Denver Broncos terrible defense and playing, I think, a very poorly coached Washington defense. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very talented Commanders defense. Coaching, sure, certainly a huge problem, but talented. So that's something. Okay, 40 points last week, 31 points the week before. That's good, right? That's, you can be happy about that, right? Is Justin Fields turning it around?
I think he is doing things in these 2 games that we've really needed to see him do this year to represent the kind
You're
of
picking your words super carefully, man.
I feel a little bit like a politician there, right? No, but I'm getting to it, like he. So the answer, I mean, we don't know if he's actually turning it around. That's sort of the short answer there. But like, I do think so. Like, I compared the Denver game a little bit to what we saw from Mitch Trubisky in 2018 when he put up 6 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where it was like, okay, in that game, Tampa sat in cover one like all game, and Mitch could just read man coverage, and they didn't do anything creative defensively. It was really easy and obvious for him to throw, and it was like, oh, okay, well, like that wasn't a big turning point for Mitch Trubisky. It was just an absolutely horrendous defensive game plan and not great defensive personnel, and everything just kind of clicked for Mitch that day. But then from there, it was kind of like back to regular Mitch. And at least like for Justin, it felt that way a little bit against Denver too, where they just, I mean, guys were just blowing coverages, and it wasn't like it was. I mean, he was still making nice throws in that game, but it was also like horrible Denver Broncos defense. It's like, okay, sure, he does get credit for actually doing it, because not every team was doing that to the Denver Broncos. I mean, the Dolphins did, but other teams weren't having it that easy. I mean, the Bears were up 28-0, like, or 28-7 really quickly in that game, and everything was clicking. Like, you get some credit for doing what you're supposed to do in that matchup, but it's like, okay, what happens when the defenses adjust a little bit more, when they sit back in more two deep shells and make you have to beat them, with more precision downfield. And we still didn't exactly see that against the Commanders either. And that's where I'm encouraged by what Justin Fields is doing, but I still need to see it like really sustain. Like, he is hitting throws over the middle of the field. He is hitting with better anticipation. He's hitting tighter windows. He has more confidence again. And that's good. But what happens when it's, a real defense and not these two college defenses we're facing?
All right, so imagine, if you will, hypothetically, he goes up against a defense that blitzes, I don't know, 50 to 70% of the time. How would he handle that very hypothetical scenario?
Well, that's the thing, though, is like they did against Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers in week 2. I think that was week 2. Yeah. And then Kansas City Chiefs in week 3 with Spagnuolo wasn't quite as high, and it's not the same tree in terms of coaching staff.
Hey, that's 27 points. That's pretty good if you don't account for the fact that that's over 2 games.
Fair. I mean, and again, like, those were, and I'm not to say, my point was not that he played really well in those games. It's more so like, all right, they've had some opportunities against teams that will attack him like this. And so it's not like, okay, my point being, we have some evidence of how he's going to perform in those games, and it has been, mediocre so far. I mean, I think that was before the offensive coordinator remembered that like moving the pocket sometimes helps, and like putting DJ Moore early in route concepts helps too. Like, there was a play against the Chiefs where DJ Moore ran a rub route for Cole Kmet. Like, DJ Moore set the pick to free up Cole Kmet, and it's like, what are we doing with our number one wide receiver? Not just a decoy, but like actually not running a route that could be open, just to free up your slow big tight end to catch a
for JT O'Sullivan's favorite tight end.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, it's like stuff like that where the coordinating and the coaching seems to be a little bit better this time around. And honestly, it didn't feel as much like the blitzing was really getting Fields that bad. I mean, like, certainly it wasn't it was making it more difficult for him, but it wasn't like, oh man, he just has no idea what to do against the blitz here. It was just more like he was inaccurate and not trusting his eyes when he would look downfield, but it wasn't like the blitz was maybe in his head in the same way. It was just more of like a trusting himself, his arm, and his receivers and his offense. And that part seems to have been improved since then. So in theory, if he can have the same sort of resilience versus the blitz that we saw in those 2 games, maybe things will be a little bit easier. Plus, the Vikings are no Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, that Kansas City Chiefs defense is like serious. As opposed to the Vikings defense. It's deeply unserious.
Yes.
Yeah. So like one element of the blitz is not like so much necessarily that it makes the quarterback panic. And, one element might be that it can change the way that you read. But, the concern that I had for Fields last year was processing speed, his ability to, because I felt like he generally made the right decisions. You just made them too late. I felt that his accuracy could be there if he had set his feet. Obviously, the arm strength is there. The blitz speeds up your processing. Justin Fields, I believe, has the longest time to throw in the NFL. If he doesn't, he's in the top 3. Do you think that forcing him to accelerate his process is something that would create a problem for him?
I think it did against Tampa and Kansas City, which of course would lend itself to thinking it will against the Minnesota Vikings. But the part I hesitate on that only is that against the Commanders, it still felt like even when he was forced to speed up, like he sped up his processing to match it. Like there was a particular play where the center Lucas Patrick snapped the ball on the first count instead of the second one, so he snapped it. None of the line moved for a half a second. So Fields had free rushers on both sides. Both tackles didn't move, and edge rusher was coming right at him, and he planted his foot and threw a slant route to DJ Moore with perhaps the most anticipation we've seen Justin Fields throw on a play all season and maybe his whole Bears career. Hit an incredibly tight window contested catch throw where only DJ Moore could get two hands on it. He made a tough catch on it. It was a perfect throw that he saw quickly, didn't panic, made the quick decision. It wasn't like it was a designed hot route, just a quick, check down to the running back or a quick flat route. Like it was the slant where he was supposed to be reading that front side of the play anyway. And he hit it, and he hit it quickly, and he hit it perfectly. And it was like, oh, there's the ultra fast processing progress that we've been looking for in a situation that maybe isn't the same as a cover zero blitz per se, but the same speed up, like, oh man, there's an edge rusher coming at me free and I got to get rid of this ball. And it's not just the quick check down, but it's like still firing it in there early, but early being on time, which for Fields has been a struggle.
All right, fair enough. When are we going to get the better quarterback, Tyson Bagent, in there? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Agent, rhymes with agent.
Bagent. All right. When are we going to get that guy in there? He seems dope.
We were, after the Chiefs game, there were plenty of Bears fans calling for it. You know what I mean? Like about leading up to the Denver Broncos game. It's listen, there's a lot to like about Tyson Bagent, but it's the classic undrafted rookie free agent who makes a couple of nice preseason plays. And
great preseason.
But it's not like, I mean, you're only going to get to Tyson Bagent if there's an injury. I mean, the Bears have no incentive, even if they're still winless, if they hadn't beaten the Commanders and we're still 0-5. Like your maximum incentive is to squeeze as much out of Justin Fields this season, so that maybe you end up, at worst, you end up trading him. If not, if you decide, okay, he's not our guy, can you at least show another team enough to give you a draft pick for him this offseason before he's a free agent?
All right. That's it for quarterbacks. Let's talk a little bit about what's left of the running back room.
You don't want any Nathan Peterman questions? Oh.
Is he on the practice squad right now, or is he on the roster?
So he spends every week between the two. So some games he's up, some games he's down. He's a part of the team for sure. It's just a matter of whether he's active or practice squad, and they've kind of alternated between the two. Like he's been cut and re-signed 4 times this season.
Part of the team for sure.
He was QB2 for a while there.
Yeah, no, I know. It was news when Bagent moved up to QB2. No, let's talk about running back. So Khalil Herbert injured, Rashawn Johnson injured. I believe that one's a concussion, so he's probably not going to come back. Travis Homer injured.
Correct.
So you've got Donta Foreman, which he looked pretty good for a couple of stretches last year. Darrington Evans, who was everybody's favorite running back 2 years ago in the draft, 3 years ago. From what was it, like Appalachian State or something like that?
I think it's a few more years before that. He's been in the league 5 or 6 now.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh, no, I guess not. It was 2020 was his rookie season. So never mind. I thought it was longer in Tennessee. My bad.
Is he signed off the Dolphins practice squad or something like that?
But he had been with the Bears last year.
Okay. And then I mean technically Kari Blasingame is a running back. But that's it, right? Because I don't think there's any practice squad guys.
Correct.
Practice squad guys? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. Not that no one that's going to be like who's been around is going to get called up. That's for sure.
Are any of these guys going to play? Because I don't think any of them participated in the most recent practice.
The injured guys, I'm not expecting any of them back this week.
Any of them? Goodness.
The 3 running backs, I should say. Obviously, the other positions.
I know, but I get it.
But no, Khalil Herbert's expected to miss multiple weeks with this ankle injury. Rashawn Johnson has a concussion, and there have been very few players this season that get ruled out with a concussion in a game and play the very next week. It's been kind of a wider trend league-wide that guys with concussions are not coming back as quickly. And then Travis Homer has not played an offensive snap this season. He's been all special teams anyway, and he also is not participating with a hamstring injury. So at this point, it's going to be Foreman and Evans, and then Blasingame in emergencies, but he's going to be. I mean, he's the fullback. When they were out of running, they were literally out of running backs last week. So Blasingame took like 8 carries as a true running back because they had no one else. And I wanted to see Velus Jones get back there, but that's a separate conversation.
Who's older, Blasingame or Velus Jones?
I think Velus Jones. But
good Lord, dude! I remember when Blasingame was in Vikings camp, like in 2019.
I'm going to birthdays, and Blasingame's got him by a little less than a year. Blasingame is 27, and Velus Jones is 26 and a half. So
what does this running game look like without running backs?
Snap to Justin Fields, run left, run right. No, I mean, they've kind of felt like some of these guys can be interchangeable back there, at least in the ground game. Like Foreman has been a healthy scratch for the first. I mean, I don't think he's had a regular season carry up to this point. He might have got to play a little bit in week 1, but he has not. Yeah, he's got 5 carries, and they were all in the first game against the Packers. He's been a healthy scratch ever since because they just like Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert better, but not because Foreman isn't any good. Like we saw him rush for almost 1,000 yards last season in Carolina with McCaffrey as a starter for half the season. Like he's got some real talent there. He just wasn't as good as Herbert and Foreman through the preseason. And I'm not expecting Herbert and Johnson through the preseason. And I'm not expecting Foreman to come in and, rush for 150 yards or anything like that in this game. But I think there's a certain confidence that, this offensive line is run blocking fairly well right now, and that Foreman has a decent ability to at least read blocks. He might not be like explosive per se, but he can take every yard that the offensive line is going to give him and maybe run hard for an extra 1 or 2 after that. And that should be, in theory, fine, especially you mix in some Justin Fields read options, some Justin Fields scrambles, and they've slowly been finally re-implementing more actual designed quarterback runs where there's no option. It's just snap directly to Fields, lead blockers, that sort of thing. So in theory, it should be
working.
To varying degrees, not to the same extent it did last season, but some of it's on the offensive coordinator where it's like they ran a direct to Justin Fields off the left side where, they had a wide 9 defensive end outside the tackle and no tight end to that side. And he just ran around and tackled, just ran unblocked essentially because the tackle couldn't get to him because it was just, they didn't design the play well enough to get like bodies on bodies, and it went for a loss. Like it's stuff like that keeps kind of getting in their way, but it generally does work. They've switched to like, they'll even run like bash options too, where the blocking is designed for the quarterback. So the read is, the give read is more likely to keep the quarterback with the ball. And that stuff's been working a lot better.
Right. Because the back is away from the blocking. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That brings us to the offensive line. Secretly kind of good.
That's kind of. I mean, define kind. It feels like. No, I mean, I don't want to give them that credit. Like that's the thing. It's like, because like.
Okay. First of all, where is Tevin Jenkins playing?
He's playing only at left guard. It's a question of whether he will play every snap or whether they will rotate him in a rotation with former 7th round pick Jatari Carter. Because Jenkins has been hurt all season. The last game against the Commanders was his first game back from injury, and so they didn't have him going every snap as he sort of got warmed up again. But you'd think after the 10-day break from a Thursday night game, he should be close to 100%, but the Bears pretend there's some competitive advantage by not saying that outright. And so they're saying, well, we'll still see if it's going to be a rotation or not, even though Tevin Jenkins is clearly their best offensive lineman.
Okay. Does that feel weird that he is? Like, I understand he's like nearly a first round pick, but like after all of the shenanigans 2 years ago, it just feels kind of weird, right?
I mean, it feels less weird because he played really well last season as well at right guard. And so it doesn't seem like it was a surprise last year when they moved him inside the guard. And it's like, oh, we'll see how this goes. And he was like, great. And so, I mean, great is a relative term, but like great for what the expectations were. Not a Pro Bowl guy, but, above average right guard last season. So now we kind of came into this.
So naturally they moved him to left guard.
Well, yeah, because
cool.
they're not good at keeping linemen. The Chicago Bears, regardless of general manager, head coach, and offensive line coach, they are allergic to keeping linemen in the same place and letting them develop in that one spot. They just, for whatever reason, they are really quick to move guys around. Cody Whitehair's played left guard and center this season, and he's been everywhere in his career. There was talk of moving Darnell Wright to left tackle halfway through the season once Jones went down. Like they just don't. I don't know why they don't understand some of the real value of guys being able to sit in one spot and play there, but they're getting there.
Let's talk about Darnell Wright for a little bit because right tackle, enormous dude, played right tackle in college, right? So it feels like he's had his moments, right?
He played on the left side in college. The right side is new for him here. But he has.
That was like a really well-regarded right tackle prospect.
I mean, he was viewed as instantly going to be a right tackle in the NFL. But I remember like when he was going up against Will Anderson, like that was a left tackle matchup. I'm like 99% sure as I'm starting to doubt myself just a little bit, but I'm pretty sure.
I specialize in gaslighting.
That's the point. More the point this season. Yeah, like he is great. Running downfield in the running game, he gets good movement. He pulls well and can bulldoze guys in the hole. And that's kind of what we knew from him in college. In pass protection, it feels a little bit all or nothing. Like he's either like an athletic freak who can recover really, really well, or a guy who waist bends and you beat him with that one move and you're around the corner. And it's kind of all or nothing. Like you either get him quickly or he's going to be all right for a while. And I know that's not super unique to him, but that's sort of the rookie Darnell Wright experience. It's really solid, or there's like just occasional lapses of technique that you really notice the one or two big mistakes he might make in a game, but you can live with that when he's able to do a lot of the things that you like and understand that he's still learning and getting better.
It feels like net bad.
I mean, I feel like it's net what I would expect at a rookie first round pick. Like if that's happening in year 3 or 4, yeah, but I don't know. No one thought he was going to come in and be a perfectly.
I'm not asking if the pick was justified. I'm asking if he's going to be good against Daniil Hunter.
So like, I'll give you this. If we're ranking concerns on the Chicago Bears offensive line entering this game, he's probably 3 out of 5. Like there are 2 bigger concerns and then 2 lesser concerns. If I'm like power ranking how worried I am about each of these guys, I would rank him 3rd on that list.
Sure. Well, the biggest concern is what, Larry Borum?
For sure.
Okay, tell me about him.
He's a backup offensive tackle who is a backup for a reason. He was a starter early in his career as a 5th round pick and was all right for a 5th round pick, but never really took that next step forward and kind of just.
He's no Braxton Jones.
Well, Braxton Jones hasn't quite taken. I mean, he's getting there. They very much in a similar mold, except I mean, obviously physically very different, but like in terms of the career trajectory so far. But like, no, I thought Larry Borum would fill in for Jones better than he has. Like I knew he was a below average tackle, but I thought he might be a little better than this, and it's been fairly disastrous. Like we've seen some bad left tackle play in Chicago, and this is not like there's not Jamarcus Webb out there, but it's not good. It's just not. It's not quality. So like that's the big concern spot there. And honestly, number 2 is Cody Whitehair at this point. He has been a real question mark just in terms of consistency, which is weird for him because, he'd been good for a while. But once you start switching in between left guard and center and back and forth between the two, for whatever reason, he just cannot get comfortable and stay comfortable and be up to his usual self. And that's been an issue for sure.
And he's going to play center in this game. How often has he played center in the NFL? Like it feels like he does it every season, but like not like what's the deal?
Yeah, so they spent all off season with him at center. So like he played last season, and then this year they signed Nate Davis from the Titans to play a guard spot.
Yeah, it's a true free agent. Yeah, I get. Yeah. Yes.
And so the plan was Cody Whitehair is just going to play center this season. He's not a guard. I mean,
finally he gets to focus.
Finally he gets to focus, and then Tevin Jenkins gets hurt at the end of the preseason, and boom. All right, never mind, Cody. You're back at left guard after spending the whole year playing center. Because left guard, you can just pop right in, right? And of course,
you've done it.
He gets back to left guard, and it's a struggle again. And so, so he spent like the beginning of his career as a center. Then they moved into left guard. Then they moved him back to center. Then they moved him back to left guard. Now he's back to center. Like it's been back and forth.
Right, because Lucas Patrick got injured.
Correct. And the Bears still have said, well, if Lucas Patrick can go this week, he might start at center, and we might start Whitehair at left guard. It's like, what are we doing? Like,
this rules.
Lucas Patrick's been
awful. I love this conversation that we're having so far. All right, well, let's talk about the receivers. So no Equanimeous St. Brown, right? He's injured. Doesn't feel like he's gonna be ready.
He's on the injury report and missed both practices with hamstring. There wasn't like a big moment he left the last game. Like that one kind of snuck up on me. So I'm assuming he's not going to play just given the lack of practice, but it wasn't like a big notable injury when it happened. So I'm not super familiar with the depth there.
All right. So outside of last week, how has DJ Moore played?
Well, he's had 2 good weeks in a row, but outside of, like, he's had 8 catches in each of the last 2 games it was like 150 yards against Denver and 230 yards against Washington. Before that, it's been less about DJ Moore individually and more about how the offense is using him and how Fields is not finding him. Like, he's been open all season. He gets open. We know that's what he does. And he's making more plays after the catch since then. But even so, like, this has been a very intentional, like, we are going to make DJ Moore a bigger part of this offense. Like, against the Commanders games, he had like 3 or 4 of his big plays were all just double moves. Like, he was going against a bad rookie cornerback in Forbes who got benched, or a struggling rookie cornerback in Forbes who got benched, and then he was going up against a backup beyond that. So they smoked him on double moves 4 or 5 times in this game. Like, it wasn't always anything like super special drawn up by the coach. It was just like, slant and go. All right, great. He's wide open. Justin Fields can hit him. It's so it remains to be seen like how long they can sustain that. And maybe against the Vikings, it's still sustainable. If we're going to be blitzing the majority of the time, it's going to be a lot of single coverage on him, and he can win those single coverage games. I'm more concerned when you get to a team that's going to be more deliberate about doubling him, if the Bears can have anybody else kind of step up and make enough plays.
If you were to rank the receivers in the NFL, where would DJ Moore rank?
That's a good question. Certainly not top 5, certainly not top 10. I'm actually pulling up a list of the receiving yard leaders so I can kind of get a sense of. I mean, I think he's definitely top 20 for me, but in between.
So you would take what? Would you take Garrett Wilson ahead of him?
That's a pretty close discussion for me. I was leaning no. I would probably take DJ Moore ahead of Garrett Wilson, but I think Garrett Wilson, we have not seen Garrett Wilson's peak form yet. So like,
right. Yeah. But I mean, like, now Garrett Wilson,
now Garrett Wilson, no, yeah. So not today. No.
What about Jalen Waddle?
I think DJ Moore can do a little, like, I think Waddle is more explosive and like has more like home run to him a little bit, but DJ Moore is a little bit more well-rounded. So I guess it kind of depends on what I'm taking him for. Like, on this Bears team, I think DJ Moore is a lot more effective. Like, he has more of that, like, X receiver, like number one kind of skill set. Whereas I think Waddle can't quite win in as many ways, but is, faster and more explosive and can be more dynamic in that kind of a sense. So I guess more, but it depends on the context.
All right. Well, with that explanation in mind, what about Chris Godwin?
Ooh, those guys are very close to me in my head. Like, I think they can both do a lot of the same types of things and can help your offense win a lot of the same ways. And I like Godwin a lot. So that's almost a push for me. I don't know. I lean more just a little bit because I've seen Moore do it with no one else, whereas Godwin's kind of always had, or most of the time has had, Mike Evans to take a decent amount of that attention. I mean, I know he's done it in games when Evans isn't out there, but for the most part, it's mostly like he's had other people to take attention to that offense, whereas DJ Moore has done it single-handedly in Carolina and now Chicago, where I feel like that he can withstand the type of defensive attention that a number one receiver gets. All
right. And, okay. So you think of him as like a true number one, that he can lead in offense as the top receiver?
Yes. Like, I don't think he's in the same category as, like, certainly not like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, or even not quite AJ Brown, in the sense that, like, those guys have some extreme physical characteristics that are just a notch better than everybody else. But I see him in that, like, next tier of number one receivers.
Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I think I would take him over Calvin Ridley. I still need to sort of see.
No. Like, the other ones I got where you were coming from. I think I'd probably take Godwin, but Calvin Ridley.
I'll admit I've seen some Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville this year, but, like, I still need to see more. I want to see him, like, really consistently do it in this new stretch. Like, I like Ridley a lot, but, like, DJ Moore's the proven commodity right now. I'll take it.
So DJ Moore as a, I don't know, second tier, third tier wide receiver one.
Yeah.
So my understanding of players like Darnell Mooney and, when healthy, Equanimeous St. Brown is that they're like fine complements, right? But that would make it seem like the receiving core is like complete. Like, obviously it has room for improvement, right? Because it doesn't have a Jamar Chase or whatever, right? But, like, that the way that you have now characterized DJ Moore, which is why I asked all those questions, And the way that I conceive of Darnell Mooney, the way that maybe I'm overselling Okanemi St. Brown, but the way I kind of conceive this group is that like, hey, this is actually a pretty decent receiving core. If Chase Claypool had worked out, this would be like a complete receiving core. Is that the sense you had coming into the season?
Yeah, I think the idea was that if Chase Claypool worked out, they would be, dare I say, one of the better receiving cores. Like if you could get back to the rookie year Chase Claypool, like up to a 600-800 yard receiver, and we've seen Darnell Mooney be 1,000-yard guy. I mean, I'm probably not going to go as far on Equanimeous St. Brown as you are. He's a really good.
No,
blocker.
yeah, I realized where I was going. Yeah, I was going too far.
But they love him for his blocking, and that's
great.
Like he can catch it sometimes, but like he's a blocking receiver for sure. And Mooney's been underwhelming this season, and I again don't necessarily think it's like him per se, but more like this offense can't seem to figure out how to get more than one player involved at a time, and he's been really the benefit. What's the opposite of the beneficiary of that? He's been the beneficient, I guess. You know what I mean, though. He's been the victim, maybe. Like Darnell Mooney had 1,000 yards 2 years ago, or was that last year or 2 years ago with not a very good Bears offense, right? I mean, like you can't just accidentally sort of luck yourself into doing that once. Like we've seen him be an effective route runner. We've seen him make plays after the catch. I don't think he's a number one wide receiver per se, like in the DJ Moore sense, but like he should be very good. He has been very good for significant stretches of time. He's had huge games. It just, for whatever reason, it's not quite happening this year. So it doesn't feel like the Bears receiving core is very good right now.
I feel like we've seen a number of receivers luck into 1,000 receiving yards. I don't know what you're saying. Like Kevin Ogletree, remember him? I feel like he was a 1,000-yard guy that 1 year.
1,000 yards for Ogletree? Like I was thinking of like Jacoby Myers type, like was kind of a luck into the 1,000-yard receiving.
No, it was the 1 year was 436. What am I thinking of? Cecil Shorts, maybe?
I mean, certainly there have been examples, but like usually it's not like the thing. I think the thing with Mooney is like it wasn't just like he had done nothing, and then had a big year. Like he had 600 yards as a 5th-round pick as a rookie, and you're like, oh wow, this is impressive. Then he took that next step his second year and had 1,000 yards and 80 catches. Like, and it was like there was the trajectory there, and then maybe last year you can excuse it for the whole offense was really bad, but now it's like the offense is starting to have some passing success again, and it's all been DJ Moore, and it's like, well, where's Mooney in all this? Like he's good and he has the best connection with Justin Fields. Why hasn't this happened yet? And maybe it still will, but it's just everyone's kind of sitting around waiting for a guy who's in the last year of his rookie contract.
Cecil Shorts had 979 yards. I'm going to count it. That counts to me as lucking into 1,000 yards.
But he followed that up with a 777-yard season and a 600. You know what I mean? Like
You looked him up while I mentioned him, huh?
I did just now. Yeah. But it wasn't like it was a 1 year wonder per se. It was a 1 year peak, but like he maintained within a couple hundred yards of that the next couple of seasons with some injuries in there. It looks like. So, I mean, his yards per game hovered around that same mark. You know what I mean? Like he was. This is not a Cecil Shorts argument. It's more like why can't we should expect Mooney to go from not from 1,000 yards to 493 last season, like literally less than half the receiving yards from 1 year to the next, like which was a career low last season in his third year. Like he should be better than that. Like maybe he ends up around where he was his rookie season, 60 catches for 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like that feels like where he should level out to. And he is still far below that this season. He's on pace for his by far his career low so far.
The most bad faith version of this argument would be Josh Gordon. You know, Hunter Renfrow had 1,000 yards.
Really? Was that just like year or two
2021.
ago?
2021. He had 1,000 yards.
That might be a good example there. Then, like,
yeah,
700-yard guy, 600-yard guy, 600-yard guy, 1,000-yard guy. Like, that's kind of what the Mooney trajectory was on. But I mean, with Renfrow now, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense because Devontae Adams comes in and takes everything, and maybe that's what Darnell Mooney's experiencing now too. Like, okay, DJ Moore comes in and takes everything. What do you got? Although they had Waller in Vegas as well. I think you can start to have a couple of excuses there. And Cole Kmet is no Waller, but they throw to him as Waller, and it's weird.
They throw to him like he's Waller. All right, who's faster, Velus Jones or Tyler Scott?
I think in a 40-yard dash, Velus Jones has more long speed. I think Tyler Scott's a little bit more short area explosive.
Okay. Who do you want active on game day as a receiver?
Tyler Scott, by far. Velus Jones' offense so far this season is blocking and jet sweeps. It's always very obvious. He's either the decoy or he's going to get the ball in the jet sweep, and it's 4 plays a game, and it's not offering you much value. Tyler Scott has a little wiggle and some route running ability that I trust Tyler Scott a little bit. So how about this? Tyler Scott hasn't lost my trust yet in the same way.
Sure. And he's got his whole future ahead of him.
Well, that too. And yeah, Velus Jones has had his whole future behind him already. Like he already lived a whole career.
His whole future behind. That's a great sentence, man. He's had his whole future behind him.
I mean, it's true. Start on.
All right, let's talk about the defense. Okay, so inappropriate, not illegal, right? That's what we've landed on with Alan Williams.
The company line is no, they have not said the words not illegal. They just have said it's inappropriate. I think.
Okay. I think it was Schefter or somebody was like he was let go for inappropriate behavior, not for illegal behavior, which does not suggest that he did not engage in illegal behavior,
Correct.
But that the reasoning for his firing was resignation.
It's my understanding that perhaps there was some investigation that may have crossed over into the legal side of things. That doesn't mean he did anything illegal, but they perhaps were looking into whether there were illegal actions, which, okay, so maybe if they haven't found that anything illegal was done, doesn't mean he wasn't fired for potentially actions that may rise to the level of illegal. That's what I think everyone's still trying to determine and figure out, and why there hasn't been any additional reporting on it, because I think everyone's waiting for the law to have its say either way, either yes, there was something illegal, or no, there's nothing illegal. And then I think additional reporting will come out about what actually happened.
So is the law involved?
It's my understanding that there has been some level of the law involved, but to what extent? Like, there were a bunch of false reports about Hallis Hall being raided by the FBI.
Yeah. That's why I gotta ask, because at some point somebody was like, the FBI was not involved at all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I have no idea.
Yeah, it's my understanding there is some level of law enforcement involvement, but unclear as to whether. I think they're still in the process of determining whether something rose to the level of illegal. But by definition, then, in trying to determine so, there is law enforcement involvement.
All right. Name the crime he is definitely guilty of.
Boring press conferences.
I remember that. He was a former defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. So when he was with the Vikings, I mean, he was very Leslie Frazier, but it was very you're always calling cover 2, very similar down to down, always rush 4. That's not what had happened, was it? Because no one calls cover 2 every play now.
The Bears do lead the NFL in cover 2 snaps as a percentage of defense this year.
Boy,
not volume, but percentage.
Even with because it's Eberflus calling the plays now?
Yes. So
has that continued?
Yes. So Eberflus started calling the plays week 2. I think.
Oh, that's right. So they took the play calling from him, and then the next week he was like, I can't travel to Tampa Bay, or was that week?
That was that week. So Williams was there for week 1. After week 1 against the Packers, he stepped away from the team for undisclosed reasons. So then he was still their defensive coordinator by definition, for week 2 against Tampa, but he wasn't at the game, and Eberflus called those plays, and then it was after Tampa that he resigned and left the team. So it's really been essentially all Eberflus except for week 1.
Just 1 week. Good Lord. Good Lord. Do you imagine that there are health concerns at play for Israel? We can talk about the players in a second. I am just so fascinated by this. Are there health concerns at play for him, not being? Why would he be gone from Tampa Bay if? Because it investigate, let the investigation play out. But you have a job to do. Why isn't he there?
I think what they said when he missed.
They said personal reasons.
Yeah, it was my understanding that he had gone to wherever home is for him, which I actually don't know. I'm assuming
but
not.
The FBI does.
Well, he had gone to spend he was away from the team and with his family. It looks like he's from Virginia originally, Norfolk.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. FBI definitely knows where it is then.
Yeah, definitely. So it was my understanding that he was back dealing with some sort of personal issue with family at that time. and then had literally was not back, never came back, or not.
So what inappropriate behavior could he have possibly conducted if he just never came back to the visit? Was week 1 really that bad from a conduct perspective?
I think whatever may have happened long ago and then just came to light after week 1, or started being investigated after week 1. I don't think something happened like. I don't think it just happened and then he immediately like went home because it had just happened after I mean, we don't know, but I would assume based on the way that it's being talked about that like it wasn't like this happened in September, right? Like that this probably happened a decent, or was building up, or had happened a decent time before and is now just sort of coming to light or investigation or whatever it might be.
I'm gonna get it out of you. I think you know.
I only know as much as you and I both talked about before we hit the record button, and I'm very afraid of slander and libel because we know Alan Williams' attorney is going to be listening to this podcast. Which, by the way, he had
not a criminal attorney though, right? Like you can't use that against him.
I don't remember. It was sounding to me like. I mean, define criminal attorney, right? I mean, like
an attorney that helps you in matters of criminal law. This is not like a ton of gray area here.
I mean, but like attorneys, I mean, he's a sports attorney, and there can be. I mean, a law firm can kind of have multiple. An attorney can have connections to other attorneys. He might have one person's name on it. That's all I'm saying. Like, why do you need to put out a statement through an attorney when you resign? You know.
Well, because people like you and me are baselessly speculating on the criminal activities he may or may not have been involved in. And so you usually get a PR firm, but it's like when something like that happens, you want like an attorney to get all the wording correct so that you don't. I'm not going to hold getting an attorney against him. That's all I'm saying.
He's a civil rights attorney.
What?
And sports lawyer.
That is not a lot of crossover in my imagination of those two
Andrew
areas
M.
of law.
Stroth is a dedicated civil rights attorney who passionately protects the constitutional rights of individuals unjustifiably injured by the police or wrongfully convicted. He's also an experienced sports attorney and trusted advisor. like I'm reading his bio. It's like, huh.
That is bizarre. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why there's some red flags that float around this whole situation.